All right, we're going to talk about using paint today. And when we're using it, this is going to be tempera paint. It's black tempera paint. And normally I would not recommend using these brushes because these are watercolor brushes, but it is what we have. So we're just going to make sure we take care of them, we clean them out, and they're ready to be used for watercolor the next time we need them. When we use the brushes, we need to make sure we are working with the tip of the brush only. So you want to hold it up like this. Don't hold it on the side. And mainly the reason behind this is so that as we are painting, we can get some really fine lines and we can control the brush a little bit more. If we're holding it on the side, then it might, squish out a little bit more, and we want control of fine lines. We might also need to fill in big areas. So I did the outer edge. Now I'm going to do the pupil part of the eye. And when we do this, we want to make sure we leave some highlights. So again, using the tip of the brush, we're just basically going to outline where the highlights are. You can see I put them in pencil first. You can have a couple. You could do one, but it's usually, it's frequent that you're going to see multiple highlights within the eye. And then I'm going to go ahead and fill in the rest of this black. So I cut out my eyes and I did a nose, and this is going to be a cat. After a lot of thought, I had to look at my eyes and analyze the fact that they looked more cat-like than anything. So I'm currently kind of playing around with the eyes to see what angle I like the eyes at. Cat's eyes aren't always straight on, and so I'm looking at it saying, okay, do I like them angled? Do I want them a little more straight on? Where am I going to put the nose? In some ways, I'm wishing I had a little bit bigger paper because I have all these ideas of fur and stuff, but it's going to work. I do not want to put the nose too close to the eyes because that would not make sense. We got to have a little more room here. And there's a lot more to come with details that we're going to put in this. So it's going to get glued on next, and then we're going to start doing some fan brush, toothbrush work to put in some fur details. Alright, so now my cat has had a chance to dry the eyes and nose and such. I have got them glued on. You can see once I glued them on, I went ahead and outlined the nose and the mouth. And at this point, now I'm going to evaluate what else do I need for details. Some of your animals, like if you're doing a dog or possibly a bird that has a lot of thicker feathers and textures, you're going to be using a fan brush or a toothbrush to add those details. I haven't quite decided what I need to add for my cat. I definitely know I need to add some whiskers, and I think there could be some possible other details to kind of suggest a stronger fur approach. But these are the textures that I was talking about when it comes to the fur, and all of the textures on this page have been made with either a fan brush, which is this, or just your simple basic toothbrush. Now, you can get a lot of details out of the toothbrush, but one of the things you have to keep in mind is you need to dab off the extra, and it might be a little bit thicker. So I'll show you an example of both. We're going to dip the fan brush in, and we're going to keep it strictly on the tips of the brush. We don't want to overload it. In fact, it's nice to have a piece of scratch paper handy so you can kind of wipe some off. And you can get some kind of sketchy looking lines if you just drew at an angle. Or if we want to get a real textural approach, real light fur. This doesn't have a ton of paint on it, but you can see I'm kind of twisting it and turning it as we go. If I want to build up a heavier fur or feather and then have it get a little lighter, then I'm just going to flick my wrist and create a more realistic approach. So again, you don't want a ton of paint on. I'll show you what happens when we put a ton of paint on. Otherwise it gets real clumpy and cloggy. This is more than we need. And in some cases maybe you want that much black, but that's pretty dark and dramatic to begin with. This is more the approach we want, is to knock out some of that paint before you actually put the texture on the paper. Now look what happens as I'm holding it at an angle. Okay, so for the toothbrush, I'm going to do the same thing, but these toothbrushes like to collect a lot of paint. So again, have some scratch paper handy, take some off, and then you can just, the lighter you touch the paper, obviously the more delicate look that we're going to get. So I'm just barely skimming it across here. And keep in mind that your animals, the fur tends to grow up and around, especially like if this is the nose area right here. We wouldn't want to start right here and have it go kind of curve in this direction, and then maybe a little straighter as we go up. So this is an example of using the fan or the toothbrush. And regardless of which one you're using, please make sure that you really wash these out thoroughly. And we want to be extremely careful with the bristles of the fan brush. When you get into these more detailed brushes, the more expensive they get, so we need to take care of them.